Presentation will begin in 2 minutes. Presentation will begin in 2 minutes.
All right, welcome, everybody. I am so glad you can join us. My name is Victor Medina. I'm going to introduce a little bit about myself in this presentation in a second, but I did want to welcome you all to the presentation, Empowering Women in Retirement. We're going to have some folks joining in along the way and probably joining us just a little bit afterwards, but I wanted to set up the rules for this for those people that are attending on YouTube Live. There is a comment section on the right-hand side of the screen. If you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to drop them in there. We might be a little bit delayed with the internet, but if you drop them in there, I'll be able to see them and I will respond to the questions as I see them come up. I'm happy to make this a really flexible and open conversation. A couple of things before we get started. Also, it's like 6 o'clock on a Monday night and you're here joining us, learning what you can about empowering women in retirement, and I want to thank you for doing that. I'm just going to try to have a good time with this presentation. I know this is an issue that a lot of people are worried about, but hopefully we're going to be able to present that in a way that makes you comfortable and answers your questions. We just want this to be a good time because, look, you're giving up some of your Monday evening to hang out with me, so I want to make this an enjoyable presentation for you also. So a couple of things before we get started with the presentation. As I mentioned, my name is Victor Medina, and I'm here today to share some information that can help you sort of plan for a great retirement. My goal essentially is to help you work towards a retirement with less worry and more fun. One where you're kind of financially confident and you live your dreams, and you can be wondering, well, who can help me do all of this? Well, here's the thing. Here at Palante Wealth, Medina Law Group, we are very committed to specifically helping women go through the journey of retirement. It's something that apparently we have created this expertise around, because as we look at the ranks of our clients, more and more of them are made up of women who are in charge of their own retirement and trying to navigate that successfully, and we are proud to call ourselves partners along the way with them. A couple of things before we jump into this. By the way, just so you know, this presentation should really only last between, I would say, 35 to 40 minutes, so you can plan your dinner around that. Before I get started, though, compliance has asked me to put this slide up here. This is our legal disclaimer, and I'm going to read this for you word for word. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I'm not going to do that. We have to leave this up here for 2.75 seconds. So we're going to go 1, 2, 2.5. All right, 2 3/4. Got that. Seriously, what this says is that we're here tonight to inform you, and that nothing being presented is a personal recommendations for anything to buy, and nothing of what we're going to be presenting is intended to provide you with personalized specific investment recommendations, legal or tax information. All investments involve risk. You know, at the end of the seminar, you're going to be given an opportunity to schedule an appointment with our firm, and that appointment is offered at no obligation. And probably the best thing that we're going to share with you is exactly that. Okay, so as for the presentation this evening, you were all shipped a workbook if you registered for this online, and that workbook is going to give you an opportunity to walk through a lot of the topics that we're going to be talking about tonight. This is not going to be a test at the end. There's going to be nothing that we kind of quiz you on when we're all said and done, but the workbook will give you an opportunity to get your affairs in order and really understand what you need for your retirement. And I think that's the best part of going through an exercise like this, because no matter where you are in the journey, you might have gotten along pretty far and you feel great about what you're doing, or maybe you're somebody that isn't really sure about it. At least going through the exercise of putting the workbook together and walking through step by step along the way, it will give you the information you need in order to take the next step after that. And that's really the goal for what we are discussing this evening. So that's the whole purpose of the workbook and everything that we're going to be doing. The goal of this presentation is to provide you with a lot of information so that you can take the best action in terms of setting yourself up for the best possible retirement that you can have. And as I mentioned before, our firm has developed this expertise in being able to help clients put together a great plan for their retirement, both on the legal and the financial side. And I'm going to go a little bit through my credentials as we go along the way, but before I jump into that, I did want to tell you essentially a personal story about why it is that I care so deeply about helping women throughout their journey in retirement. And it really goes back to the story of my own mom. While you're not going to be surprised to see that I'm not a woman giving this presentation, my team here around me with Palante Wealth and Medina Law Group is made up of entirely women. And of course, I was raised by a very strong woman. Women, in fact, my parents divorced and I got remarried. I have both of my mom and my stepmom, and I have a very strong and delightful wife. Here's the thing about my mom and her story. Going through her journey, she actually had to file bankruptcy after my dad divorced her. And it was really because he had taken the reins on the finances and left her with a mess when they divorced. And I have come to terms with my dad. I don't hold him at any fault. But I look at the journey that my mom had to go through, specifically the things that she had to do in order to help us with her own needs, as well as providing for me, her only son at that time, and kind of going through bankruptcy and now arriving through a life. I won't tell you how old she is, but arriving through a life where she owns 2 properties and she has a very healthy and happy retirement with her and my stepdad. I don't think that would have been possible if she wasn't the kind of woman that she is in terms of being able to persevere and work through really difficult items. So the whole idea behind that is that I took what was important about what she went through that journey and adopted it as my own need to serve that community and help people really take care of what it is that they're doing with their retirement. So without further ado, let's go through the slides for today. I wanted to go through the agenda for this presentation. So we're going to be covering 3 major areas in this. We're going to talk about what the good news and the not so good news is for women as investors in retirement. We're going to talk a little bit about values-based planning in and around your retirement. And then finally, we're going to talk about what we call the 3-basket approach to retirement and the need to do planning. So that's the presentation for today. So let's jump right into the good news. As you can see up on the screen, the good news is that women will eventually control over 90% of all wealth. And the reason for that, as you see, is in terms of the not so good news, is that women tend to outlive men by a considerable amount of time. Generally about 5 years. 40% of all households with over $600,000 are controlled by women, and 83% of purchases in the U.S. are controlled by women. So here's the point of this. Women as investors and as controllers of money are powerhouses. And not only are they in a situation where they are likely to essentially control up to 90% of all wealth that's going to be transferred over the course of time, because they tend to die single as opposed to married, and they intend to inherit when they're married their spouse's income. When we flip that around, it starts to introduce some topics that we have to plan around, which is that women are living 5 years longer than men on average. The average age of widowhood, as you can see on the screen, is 59. And there are all of these reasons for why women end up becoming single, and suddenly single and in charge of finances. The point of why women are different because of their longevity is that their planning needs to be different. We as men can take a lot more risk when it comes to what it is that we're going to be doing on how we're going to be setting up our finances, because the truth of the matter is we're not going to be the one ending up with as much of this as women are. And so when women approach their finances, they need to do that in a completely different way, which means often planning for longer, planning with different kinds of risk, and because they're often in a role of a caretaker, either because of their spouse or their parent, we also need to position them in a way that they can essentially weather all of that, weather all of the time that's necessary to invest for longer, weather the risk of keeping things secure for a longer period of time. So their strategy needs to be a little bit different as well. Okay, so going through this, we want to switch over into discussing essentially the difference between goals and values. And what we're going to do is probably the most important thing you can do to manage your money in retirement. It's also the easiest to do, which is putting your money where your values are. And we talk about values, it's not the first thing that typically comes to mind when it comes to your finances. You know, most people are looking at financial advisors and their presentations is about talking around returns. But when you think about it, money is not an end to itself. It's essentially a tool that is there to help people accomplish their goals. So as we go through this, I'm kind of interested. I'd like you to put in the chat box essentially what money means to you. And I would love to call some of that stuff out as it's posted in there. So go ahead and drop in what money means to you, and it'll help us with our conversation along the way. As I was mentioning, we want to talk about the difference between goals and values, because values often drive what it is that we do with our money. So if you look here, goals are the things that we're trying to accomplish, and it may be paying down a house, or paying down debt, or buying a home, or something along those lines. Maybe even traveling. Those are goals of what we have. But the values are completely different. Values are intangible. They don't carry a price tag. And they can range in terms of making a difference, or freedom, independence, about how somebody feels with respect to how they go through life. And often money can help them do that. And I'll tell you, in your workbook, you're actually going to have two versions of this. You're going to have the version here that has all of this information laid out, but you're also going to have one that's blank that you can complete on your own. And the reason why this one is laid out is because it helps remind me of a story that I actually had with a client. So I had a woman show up, and she ended up being widowed from her husband. So she inherited about $700,000 or $800,000. And I asked her what was important to her about money. What is it that she wanted to do? And so the first answer that she gave me to that question was, well, she's really concerned about making sure that she has enough for her own security. So let's put that back up on the screen. Her security was the bottom of the values ladder. So I asked her after that, well, what is the next thing that is important? What's important about security for you? Why is that an important thing to do? And she told me, well, one of the things that she was looking for was being financially independent. She didn't want to be, she didn't want to worry about where the next dollar was going for. She wanted to have that level of independence that money can buy. And so I kept questioning her with respect to the values. I said, okay, well, what's the next most important thing about that? Why is being financially independent? And it turns out that she didn't want to be a burden to her family. And as I questioned her more, she wanted to be in a position where she could give to her family rather than taking from her family. And then finally, she wanted to enjoy life with her family now and not have that be something that she left away. So when we think about this, left after she died, when we think about the values ladder that's created, once we start to build the purpose of money one layer on top of another, what we discover is essentially the true purpose for what money is in that person's life. And for this client, she wanted to live life now. She wanted to take her money. She wanted to be able to enjoy that. And when I remember asking her about how she was going to go ahead and manifest this enjoying life right now, for her, it was the opportunity to travel, to take her family to Africa on a family safari. Now, this is, of course, back in the time that we could travel, and so that for her was something that was important. And she said, I'm very fearful that if I try to accomplish that value, that goal, it starts to threaten the other one. By the way, see some of these coming in off of it, so I'm glad to see that people's values include comfort, which I probably would be a mix of being financially independent and also being with security. So for this client, what she didn't recognize and what we were able to highlight for her as a benefit of being advisors in her life is that she was actually generating more income per year and saving it and not spending it than what the trip was going to cost to bring her family out there. It was a pretty expensive trip. It was about $15,000, but we were able to manage money in a way that would kind of bring up that additional income. And so from that perspective, she was now able to live in integrity with the values of her money. And it was important for her to get the answer to that question so that she could go day to day with that, essentially with peace of mind. So I want to transition to the discussion around the three buckets of money. And the three basket or bucket approach is really an approach of way kind of thinking about money. And we take this from an author named David Bach, who has created the book Smart Women Finish Rich. And he talks about the three basket approach to retirement. And here's the thing that, most people make financial planning around retirement complicated. And I don't really think it needs to be. While it's important to have advice along the way, the real goal is to simplify these discussions. And so if you're in a position where you're having conversations around your investments and it turns out that you're feeling overwhelmed or it's that it's too complicated, typically it's because the person that you're working with isn't taking the opportunity to have you understand at a simpler level what it is that you're doing with your retirement. And so if we think about this 3-basket approach, we're going to be breaking these down into the retirement basket, the security basket, and the dreams basket. And what we're going to be talking about are ways that you accomplish this. So let's kind of go for that first one, which is retirement. So part of what you're going to be doing in there is thinking about the different things that go into the retirement basket. And so as you see up on the screen, there are any number of different components that are part of the retirement basket. There's the retirement pension, there's healthcare, Social Security, income, investments, inflation. All of these things end up going into that basket together. So it quickly gets to be a lot. And if you find yourself confused or concerned about a lot of these things, it turns out that you're not alone. There's just so much to discuss and think about there. And so one of the things when you kind of get to retirement, one of the questions we ask is, what's the most important thing for you to do once you get into retirement? When you finally get to the point in time where you've switched from making money and earning money and saving money and accumulating wealth, what's the most important thing to do after that? It turns out that most people share that the most important thing to do is to create an income check, to get a paycheck out of retirement. And the way that we arrive at a paycheck is to look at each one of these different buckets that are here, or these little inputs, and try to figure out how can we create a paycheck that ends up being reliable and something that you can get guaranteed through retirement, so that you have comfort that essentially day-to-day days, kind of what you're going to be spending money on, that you don't have worries that what you're going to get in retirement is somehow not going to be enough. And this is the first layer of that in terms of the ability to create that kind of paycheck. Now, what goes into the retirement income paycheck? It's the categories of things like Social Security and pension plans, and then our savings, the things that we've put aside, like our 401k, IRA, 403b, or money that we've set aside in an investment account. That's how we're going to generate our income. And for most people, the idea that there is a pension afterwards, it has gone away, because most private companies have done away with pensions, so that people are mostly relying on Social Security and their savings. Now, there are a class of employees or workers that are going to have some form of a pension, typically related to state or government work, like teachers and people in law enforcement or government work, state employees. And those folks are going to have a guaranteed paycheck as they get through retirement, and then it allows us to use the money that they saved for something else. But for a vast number of us, we're looking at that large bucket of money that we are setting aside, money that we've put aside in savings in an IRA, and trying to figure out how to create a paycheck from that. And here's the thing, most people think about it just as a bucket or a well with money in it that you drop the bucket down and pull up the money that you need. And you say, I need a check for $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000. And it's not often the best strategy for creating a guaranteed income stream once you get into retirement, because as you go through the whole journey, if the investment returns end up depleting some of the value of that account, then creating a paycheck from a smaller number means that you'll have less money to live off of as you go through life. So we really need a strategy here in terms of retirement income where we kind of blend everything that people have, Social Security, when to claim it, how you're going to maximize it, looking at the pension if you have pension options, and then looking at the savings that you have inside of the 401k and the IRA, and determining how it is that you're going to fill the income gap. How are you going to essentially generate the additional income that you're going to get from that? So when we think about the concept of a retirement plan, we want to know where all the buckets of money are. We want to be thinking about, are they in an IRA? Are they in a Roth? Are they held up in an annuity? Is it part of my old 401k? and then being able to figure out how we're going to generate income from that. And when we consider how long it's going to last, there are 4 things that determine how long that money is going to last. The first is, what kind of risk is that money at in the investments? Try to relate it to that risk, we're also thinking about how diversified they are, which means essentially when the investments go up and down, how are they going to manage kind of the roller coaster of that. If they're better diversified, you'll have an opportunity to keep that saved. Of course, there are fees associated with retirement, so we want to minimize those fees in terms of the total amount of money that we have saved. And then finally, what it's invested in, if there are investments that can go up and down versus investments that are protected, how much are your taxes going to impact it? And by the way, I'll give a brief plug. For those individuals that are interested, we're going to be holding a seminar tomorrow talking about what the election results might mean for your retirement, and there's a big section in there talking about taxes, and then finally how long you're going to live and what your long-term care situation is going to be. Namely, are you going to be somebody that requires a nursing home or assisted living? Those items are the ones that determine how long your money is going to last. If taxes go up in the future, it means that more of your money is going to be going to your partner in retirement, the IRS, and the government, and less of it's going to be going in your pockets. And similarly, when we start to think about things like longevity and long-term care, well, we were talking about how women end up living longer than men, and so for that reason, how long they live impacts how much they have in retirement. So I want to talk a little bit about one thing that we can do, and it is an offer for the people that are on the seminar. I want to give you an opportunity to do that. We can assess what your risk score is and include a report around how much fees you're paying and generally what kind of diversification you have. And this is in the form of a grade point average that's there. So this report we generate for people that are interested in it. All you have to do is essentially book an appointment to come and see us. And you see the link up on the screen. That's mlgpwa.as.me/Susan. And if you click on that link, it'll give you an opportunity to have a conversation with our Director of Business and Client Strategy, Susan Halem. And so what she's going to do is going to walk you through the process that we put together in order to put a plan and do the assessment for people who are interested in making sure that they have a great retirement. So we're going to put this link up a couple of additional times, and I'll ask somebody on my team to post it in the chat itself. The idea here is that it will give you an opportunity to get your risk score so that you can figure out how much your money might go up or down based on a bull market versus a bear market. You know, we've just come off of the heels of an election, and so we don't want to essentially a hope and pray plan. We want to understand where we stand, and for that we get to this next layer of an evaluation. Now, I don't know about you, but I've got a junk drawer at home. It's the one on the most left-hand side in my kitchen, and inside of it, it's got Chinese food menus. It has old batteries. It has the little eyeglass screw case, chip clips, and it essentially is just this hodgepodge of stuff that I've collected over the years of living in my house. By the way, I kind of know what's there. I kind of know that if I open that drawer, I might find menus for Chinese food or for other restaurants that's around there, but I really don't have things super well organized. And when we think about where we should be in life, we should probably have some form of organization around our affairs. And I would ask you whether or not you have a junk drawer with respect to your finances. Because here's the thing, most of the clients that we see have a junk drawer of financial products that they have acquired over the years. It turns out that over the years they may have acquired things like an old annuity that they picked up, or a life insurance policy that was meant to cover their kids when they were born, or they might have an old 401k from 2 jobs ago that they never rolled over and consolidated. And the goal here is to get to a point in time where they take those old junk drawer of investments and they put together a comprehensive plan that gives them the opportunity to essentially kind of walk through life with their degree of confidence and peace of mind, knowing that everything's in there. And for that, we get to the way that we approach things, which is to create a plan that helps people manage their investments and their retirement covering all of these things. So for us, we create a written retirement plan, and that written retirement plan is a way for you to get a handle on where you are in life right now. Because here's the thing about a written plan is that even one that you create is going to end up needing to have adjustments over time. So you can set sail for this big, ship that you're on in the ocean, and you can say generally this is going to be the right direction, but you're going to hit rocky water from time to time. Things are going to change, and the value of having the plan first created is to be able to turn back to it and then recognize what adjustments you need to make, because the plan itself is dynamic. And as we think about how we're going to get through retirement, we have to turn to somebody that we trust to be able to help guide us along the way. And we all do this, whether it's somebody as straightforward as a plumber that comes in and helps with an area of expertise in this area. When we think about financial planning and financial services, the ability to create a plan and put a plan together for somebody along the way is really the ability to turn to somebody that we trust so that we can get the answers that we need as we kind of navigate this road through life. This idea about going through and creating a plan is really about making sure that we have covered each one of the areas that we think are important. And for us, they start to cover 4 areas, which are income, investments, tax, and estate or legacy planning. We want to make sure that those things are things that we have controlled for. So these are the areas in here, and these would be questions that I would ask you. So as you go through and evaluate where you are in life, have you planned for how you're going to generate income? Have you aligned your investments with your risk tolerance so that you can make it all the way through retirement? And are you proactively planning to minimize taxes? As I mentioned before, your partner in retirement, your business partner, is the U.S. government, and they get to change the rules however they want along the way. It turns out that if the election to put Biden in the White House, as well as potentially controlling the Senate, is in place, plus controlling the House of Representatives, we're going to see new tax policies in place. Your partner in retirement is going to change, and so we need a plan that will help us proactively navigate that so that you essentially pay the minimum amount in taxes that is absolutely necessary. And then finally, when we think about estate planning, is your estate plan up to date? I didn't give my credentials earlier, but I'll put them up on the screen here now. As you can see, there are a number of designations that I hold. I'm an active and practicing estate planning attorney, and specifically, I'm a certified elder law attorney. So I own 2 businesses. One is an estate planning and elder law firm, and the other is a financial services firm where we focus on retirement. So I've got the CFP and the RICP designation, and those are essentially designations that are about making sure that we are holistic planners, that we think about everything that's necessary for a client in order to put a great plan together, as well as the RICP is a specific designation for retirement planning and making sure that we've covered that as well. When we get to the last basket, we get to the reason why we got retired in the first place. It's my favorite part of the seminar. We've talked about how to look at your values and what matters most for you. And we get to the last basket about the dream basket. So we did the security basket. That's what the plan helps us do. We did the retirement basket. Those are all the different elements that are in place. But when we think about the dream basket, this is the money that we use, that we've saved so hard to essentially go through life. And it does give me an opportunity to kind of go through a few things that I think are important for you to consider as you put together your plan for retirement. As we help empower you as a woman in retirement, we want to make sure that we are considering each one of these steps along the way. So David Bach, again, who wrote the Smart Women Finish Rich book, introduced the concept of not so much return on investment, but return on retirement. And when we get through the return on retirement, we've got 3 different stages that I want you to consider. And I'll leave this graphic up here for a little bit. It turns out that retirement really can be the best years of your life. A recent study in Merrill Lynch actually shows this to be true. Most retirees are happy to be free from the daily grind, the pressures of kind of juggling juggling family and work and getting up at the alarm and deadlines and never-ending emails. 9 out of 10 of them say that retirement gives them the freedom and flexibility to do whatever they want. But we need to think about the stages of retirement because they're not all created equal. It turns out that the first stage in retirement are the go-go years. These are from when you retire to just when you begin in your 70s. And this is the time that if you're a grandparent, you've got grandkids that actually want to spend time with you. I've got 3 kids. The oldest, 17. The youngest is 8. The 17, really good with the grandkids, but doesn't want to spend a lot of time with them. The 8-year-old will still go over on sleepovers. And so if you're in those go-go years, you're really thinking about taking advantage of what you've got in retirement because it's going to change around age 75, kind of in that range from 75 to 85, where people are going to kind of go to the slower or slow go years. And look, unfortunately, this is the point in time where people start to have more health issues, more funerals to attend, and the folks around them are not doing as much traveling. And so when we get to that last stage, these are the won't go years. And by the way, it's often the case that it's the men that won't go. In this stage, 85 beyond, health issues end up becoming more acute. The simple reality of retirement is at this age you just are not as active as you are in the go-go or the slower go years. I will share a brief story about my family. Of course, as a planner, I'm really encouraging them to avoid the pitfalls and landmines that we see so many times with other clients. And so with my mom and my stepdad, I told them, look, these are the 3 phases of retirement. There's the go-go, the slow-go, and the won't-go or no-go years. And I said, you really have to take advantage of the go-go years while you have them. So I've been encouraging them to go and take trips and do the kinds of things that their good health, but their lack of employment because they're retired, will give them an opportunity to do. And it turns out that I've been successful in some cases and not so much in the others. And it really is keyed into this idea about women and their ability to dream and take advantage of those dreams. So my mom has these ideals of going off and traveling to Europe, and I've got to really work on my stepdad to join her in that. And so we really work on them and say, look, these are the opportunities, because my stepdad who wants to save money, make sure that they have enough, won't jump into the pool as easily as my mom. But these are the times that we're able to essentially kind of create our environment for retirement. So these are the 3 stages. And here's how you discover whether or not you have an opportunity to make it all the way. And we get back to this idea of figuring out what plan you need. And as I mentioned to you, as we kind of wrap up for here today, we're going to give you the opportunity to schedule a discovery meeting. And that discovery meeting is an opportunity to start the conversation about putting a great plan in place. And so this is the link up here. This is a link that brings you right to our Director of Business and Client Strategy. So that's mlg.as.me/Susan. And Susan Halem will have a conversation with you about what the process is like, because if you're interested, we would like to see you in the office to take advantage of that. And there's a few reasons why we think that's important to do. But I did want to mention the link that's on there. As we talk about where people are going in retirement, as I mentioned, a lot of what we're trying to do is get people to help them accomplish their dreams. We all think about this image in and around traveling and retirement as being that vision for where you want to be, and that's really what we want for our clients as well. Too often, though, people go through life kind of not sure about whether or not they will have the airbags deploy when their plan needs it. And so the goal about doing the discovery meeting is really about making sure those elements, whether you've got your income, investments, tax, and estate planning, whether or not you have the peace of mind necessary to know that you're going to be okay in retirement. As I mentioned to you before, one of the things that we thought was going to be most important was the opportunity to have this exploration or discovery meeting, because as I mentioned, a lot of our clients are essentially women who are in retirement looking to get empowered to make sure that they have peace of mind. It's the thing that we've developed this expertise around. It tends to be the majority of the clients that we see. So if you're in the position where you're trying to figure out whether or not there is some form of retirement that you want want to be in, that gives you peace of mind, that you know where things are going, and you finally have the answers for that, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and schedule a meeting, because here's the thing about most of the clients that we've encountered. They end up having a decent advisors that help them accumulate wealth to get to this point in time, but they don't have great strategies about how to use that wealth when they end up getting into retirement. And so if you want to take that next step on that, you click on the link that's there, or you click on the link, or you schedule a meeting for us to explore the next steps about how we're going to do that. And we would love nothing more to honor you in the same way that I've honored my mom, and by focusing on this. And last bit of information, which is if you schedule a meeting, I will give you a copy of the book that I've published, which is called Make It Last, Empowering Women in Retirement, that I wrote specifically to give women the information that they need to help navigate through retirement and really understand what's important. So I want to give you that opportunity. I want to give you the opportunity to take that next step. As I mentioned, we were going to take about 35 to 40 minutes, and so I will wrap up at this point in time. We will follow up with you as necessary if you're at all interested in the planning that we do. Again, we are the only place in town where you can get both your legal planning done, because we are an active practicing law firm and estate plan and elder law asset protection, making sure that you don't lose everything to the nursing home, as well as an active place for retirement planning. And I want to thank you for joining us on a Monday night. If there's somebody that you know that you would benefit from this information, including the next steps on how to create a plan for themselves, I'd urge you to share with them the link for this, or refer them over to the firm, because we would like the opportunity to share with them the same information that we shared with you. Thank you so much for joining us on this evening. We look forward to meeting with you, hopefully in the office soon. And as I mentioned, if you're interested about how the election results are going to affect your retirement, we have a seminar tomorrow, Tuesday, November 10th at 5:30. Encourage you to register for that as well, so you can get the link and you can learn what the effects of the election are going to be on your retirement. That's it for this presentation. Thank you so much for joining it, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.